Hello, everybody. Lately, something I've been noticing that has been happening in the last few years, well, basically since 2016, is not just the media or politicians, but the SJWs, the activists, have been desperately trying to control people by using or by preying on people's emotions. Now, this may sound kind of strange or kind of hard to do, but in reality, it's actually very easy and very simple to do. All you really have to do is, in the basic form, is start using certain keywords or terms that will tap into people's emotions. Take, for instance, like the gun control people. One of the biggest terms that they like to use is Nazi or white supremacist. Why? Well, let's just face it. When you hear the word Nazi or the term white supremacist, or now actually even white nationalist, right away you keep thinking negatively about that person who is being called that name, because those terms and words are representative of evil. So, what these control people are trying to do is get you not only scared, but they want you angry. Because when you're scared and angry, you tend to start thinking more with your emotions once again. You become a little bit confused, and you're more reactionary instead of being thoughtful. You don't step back and say, hey, wait a minute. No, you right away start reacting and going, oh, this person is bad because he's a Nazi or a white supremacist or a white nationalist. And that's what they are trying to do to people, is make you uh, more of a reactionary type person instead of someone who's going to sit back, take in all the facts, and really look at the situation and say, hey, wait a minute, this isn't really what's going on. For a good example of what I mean by that is, look at what happened in Virginia when all those gun rights people, the pro Second Amendment people, went together in Virginia. True, they were openly carrying all sorts of different types of firearms, anywhere from a simple handgun up to, yes, believe it or not, someone even had a 50 caliber rifle. And it was a peaceful demonstration. Nobody was threatened. No fights broke out. No property was damaged. And these protesters, if you will, even cleaned up after themselves when they were leaving the demonstration. But the news media, the governor himself of Virginia, and people like David Hogg were all trying to say these are neo-Nazis, they're the KKK, they're white supremacists, they're Nazis, they're white nationalists, all coming to cause trouble in Virginia. They're there to intimidate you, to scare you into Lord knows whatever. But see, that's the terminology that the mainstream media, the politicians, and people like David Hogg, the activists, were using. They were saying there are nothing but white supremacists and Nazis, even though for a fact there were Latino, African American, and even some Asian people at this rally who are in support of the Second Amendment. And yes, many of them were open carrying their firearms. But that's not something the media, especially the media, would not tell you. They wouldn't show you in a video or photographs these African Americans or the Latinos or the Asians there at this Virginia rally. What they decided to show you was nothing but white people. And that's when they kept saying and pushing the whole Nazi, the white supremacists, and white nationalists. That's how they try to control you, because they want you to be afraid. They're going to show you this big mob of people, but only show you the white people that were there, claim all these white supremacists and Nazis were there, and what's that going to do? That's going to instill fear into the people who don't know any better. Not only just fear, but anger. And that's how they control you. So then when you do go out there and you try showing people, no, there were African Americans there. Here's some pictures. Here's some video. These people are so riled up and so scared and filled with hate that they refuse to acknowledge the facts that are given to them or provided to them to show them, hey, the media is wrong. These politicians are wrong, and activists like David Hogg is wrong. They will ignore those facts because they are thinking more with their emotions and ego and not rational thought. Now, another perfect example of how especially politicians and the media use people's emotions to control them is Donald Trump. Now, everybody loved Donald Trump before he ran for president. As soon as he announced his candidacy and that he was a Republican, running as a Republican and not a Democrat, that all of a sudden started the control. They started calling him a racist, a misogynist, a xenophobe. And then, even though at the time they really didn't have anything to say, why he's a xenophobe or a misogynist or a racist, they just kept pounding it at you and pounding, and almost all the time, 24/7 on the media, somewhere somebody was making some kind of racial claim against Trump. Now, these claims just kept coming, but there was never any verifiable proof that Donald Trump is, say, a racist. There wasn't any. Of course, and then soon after, there was a whole thing where in one of the hotels, they told all the black staff to get out of the room and only the white staff was allowed to be there or something of that nature. But the thing is, they don't say who gave that order. Was it Donald Trump's father or was it Donald Trump himself? They never give you that. They just say in one of Donald Trump's hotels, this is what happened. But they don't give you any proof to back it up. And they don't say if it was, like I said, Donald Trump's father or Donald Trump himself. They never give you that. And to this day, they still will not tell you or provide you any actual verifiable proof that he's a racist. It's just like the whole Russian collusion thing. It all came out, it was the Russians that interfered with the elections and they helped Donald Trump win. And they kept saying Russian collusion this, Russian collusion that, Russia, Russia, Russia. And then finally we had the Mueller report, or Mueller report, however you pronounce that guy's name. Even in that report came out, there was no Russian collusion at all. But the end result is what matters. What do I mean by that? It doesn't matter that the facts came out and there was no collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians. It's the mere fact of the accusation that they kept just pounding it out on the public, that they kept up with it, and they just kept using it and kept saying it and saying it and saying it. And then what happened is, you saying, Donald Trump colluded with the Russians. Well, we all know that Russia is supposed to be our enemy. So what does that do? That gets you scared. It gets you angry. Why in the heck are you going to be dealing with the Russians? So it instills that kind of an anger in you. And it doesn't matter that when the truth came out, that there was no collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians. It's the thought, that idea that was implanted in your head that he did collude with the Russians. I mean, to this day, you still got people going, Donald Trump is Putin's puppet. And that's what I mean. It's like these people are so consumed with hate that they are not thinking rationally. Now, take a look at the whole global warming, climate change or climate crisis that's going on. There is real no 100% verifiable proof saying that we're going to die in 12 years like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has said. And even she herself has said that if you believed what she said about the world ending in 12 years, you're about as smart as a sea sponge. So basically she lied. But now you got to keep in mind about the emotion thing. She came out, she said we're going to die in 12, or the world will end in 12 years if we don't do something about climate change. That causes fear in people. And it's that fear that she instilled in people that makes them totally ignore her admitting she lied about the world ending in 12 years. They don't see it that way. They will suddenly start rationalizing, oh, well, you took her words out of context. It's like, no, we did not take her words out of context. She said that the world will end in 12 years if we don't do something now. When she was caught in a lie, she came out and said, well, if you took me seriously, you're about as smart as a sea sponge. And she tried to backstep, she tried to sidestep, but she knew for a fact that she already got the control of the people by preying on their fears, on their emotion. That's what she's doing. People like AOC understand, and like the Democratic Party understand, you don't need to have verifiable proof. You don't need to have a picture or a video or something on paper or, like 30 scientists or something like that standing behind you giving you verifiable proof. They know that if they use the right words to invoke certain emotions in you, and then what they do is they kind of keep preying on those emotions once they know they got them certain key words going that are affecting your emotions, they keep on that. And once they do it a certain amount of time, they know afterwards they don't have to provide any verifiable proof to back up their claims. They know that these people are not going to be thinking rationally. They know that these people are going to be thinking with their emotions instead of rational thought. And the other way you can tell these people are being controlled and these people are only thinking with their emotions instead of, their cognitive or rational thought process is when you make a comment on one of these people's, say, Twitter feeds or Facebook page, or even like in real life, you just happen to be talking to somebody and you just nice and calmly say, hey, this is actually false, and this is the reason why it's false, or at least misleading, and you can even give them a statistic or a fact or even a web address to go to prove them wrong. What do a lot of these people do? They start hurling insults and calling you names. Or they try saying, oh, well, you went to Fox News, that's not credible. Or you went here to this website, that's not credible. But only their websites are credible, or news sites, or wherever they get their information from. Only those are credible. And it's like, no, you have to actually look at both sides. When you try telling them, you got to look at both sides of the story. You just can't hear one side and then say everything else, something that differs from your opinion is wrong. You can't do that. But yet that's how these people think. Even if you point out an article or a news story with has video, and at the end of the article or the video they give you the credits and the sources where they get their information from to prove these people wrong, they will still come up with something saying, well, no, they're wrong. Or they'll even try to come up with their own video or their own news article and say, here, this just proves you wrong again. And it's like, no, not really, because 90% of the time when they give you, like, say, a link to an article or to a news story or to a video, they don't provide the sources where they're getting their information from. And a true source would not be, let's just say, sources say, aide in the White House says this. No, that's not a source. A source would be like saying NASA said global warming or the climate crisis is not man-made, it's due to X, Y, or Z. That's a source. But 90% of the time when these global warming fanatics come up, a lot of their sources, you can go back, and even though it lists the source, even if you keep tracing it back, it never gives you something that's definitive. It's always like, well, we heard it from Dr. So-and-so. Then you go and you read from what this doctor says, or scientist, whatever, and it's always referring to something or someone else, and there's no real definitive proof. There are some that'll give you some kind of proof or some kind of statistics, but not all of them, especially when it comes to the mainstream media like the Washington Post or the New York Times. They always give you things like, our sources say this, or this source from over here says that, or they'll refer to another article, but they never give you a true listing of actual sources that can be definitive. It's always something that's still questionable. But I'm kind of getting off the subject here. The subject is really more about controlling people's emotions so you can manipulate them on how you want them to act and think and even speak. And there's always certain terms that you can use that can spark a high emotional response out of people. I've already said Nazis. You got white nationalists, white supremacists, xenophobes, Islamophobics, bigot, misogynistic, even go as far as calling someone a rapist or a sexual abuser. These are the terms that people are starting to use more and more and more of. And it's, in a way, it's actually harmful in more ways than one. Yes, it's harmful to the person that you're using it against, that you're accusing them of. But at the same time, if you're claiming everything is racist, then you are truly destroying the meaning of that word. But, as I said, they don't care because they just want to win. They believe that they are 100% right, and anybody who doesn't agree with them is wrong. There's no middle ground. There's no compromise. There's only right and wrong. Either you're with me or you're against me. That is how they have been manipulated into thinking. And that's not a good thing. And that is why when you try having a conversation with these people, you can stay nice, calm, cool, and collective. And then they suddenly get emotional. They start yelling. They start screaming. And they almost literally it comes almost to a point of where they're going to commit violence against you. Because they are not thinking rationally anymore. They have been molded and manipulated into believing or into thinking only with their feelings, with their emotions, and not rational thought. And that's what these politicians, the mainstream media, and activists want. And that's how they control these people. Because if they know that they can make someone look bad just by calling them a name, that their followers, or as I like to call them, their worshippers, will believe everything that this person says. And it's like, oh, well, if so and so says this person is a Nazi or a bigot or a rapist or something, then it must be true. No matter how much evidence or proof you give them to prove that you're not what you've been accused of, these people will not believe it. They will just go with their, I don't even want to say gut instinct. They will just go with what they feel and not what they think. It's just like the thing about canceling the student debt. They know that there's a lot of people out there who first off got worthless degrees, or they went to college for and studying something that they know that they would not be able to get a good paying job with. It's just Lord knows what the hell they were thinking when they get it, like a liberal arts degree or something. It's like when you go to college, you're supposed to not only be educated and enlighten yourself, but the possibility of, hey, look, when I get out of college, whatever my degree is in, I should be able to get a good paying job so I can pay off my student debt. And they know that there's a lot of people in America, especially the young, that didn't realize that, didn't think of that. So now here's these kids who are going to school and even who already graduated who have a lot of debt or looking forward to a lot of debt, and they just have no idea on how to pay it off, and they're panicking. Well, maybe not panicking, but they're kind of worried about how am I going to pay off this massive debt once I graduate, or now that I am graduated, I can't find a job because I was dumb enough to learn something about women's rights or social justice. That's what I got my degree in. How am I going to get a job? All I can do is work at the local Walmart bagging groceries or something. And that's what these people are preying on. All these, like Bernie Sanders and AOC and them, and even Elizabeth Warren. What they know that these people are scared. They're worried about paying off this debt. That's why they're promising them, oh, don't worry, we'll cancel your student debt. But in reality, that debt isn't canceled. They will still have to raise your taxes, and not just the rich people. Because even if you tax all of the billionaires, even at 100%, it still would not make a dent in the trillions of dollars it's going to cost to pay off student debt. Even Bernie Sanders himself admitted, yes, the middle class will have to get a tax hike to help pay this off. And even with the Medicare for all, it's the same thing. Everybody's taxes is going up. But these people that are bringing the student cancellation debt and Medicaid for all, they know that, hey, if we just tell them, you won't have to pay for it, we're going to give it to you. It's a human right. We don't have to tell them that the taxes are going up. Why? Because the only thing these people hear is, I don't have to pay. It's a free college and it's free medical. They're not going to look into it and finally realize, hey, how are you going to pay for it? My taxes are going to go up. They're not going to look into that. All they're doing is hearing free, and that's preying on these people's emotions by doing that. Because you're attacking their emotion of fear and worry by saying, don't worry, we will take care of it. But in reality, if you really think about it, they're still going to end up paying for their free college and their free Medicare. They're still going to pay for it through taxes, and maybe more than taxes too. That might even make other products go up. Prescription prices may have to go up to help pay for this, and even like your regular products when you go to the store may have to go up. And we won't even get into the minimum wage in this conversation because that's a whole nother show right there. But basically, it boils down to the mainstream media, politicians, and activists, better known as social justice warriors or total morons in my book. They know that if they use certain words and certain terms against people, and if they say it long enough, and they keep beating you over the head with it, it's going to start stirring an emotional response. And that emotional response will grow to the point where your rational thought process goes to the wayside and your emotions fully take over. They know that this will happen. That's why they just keep pushing the same story over and over again. Once again, as another example, we'll take Virginia again. Look how many mainstream media news outlets kept using the term Nazi, white supremacist, or white nationalists when they were showing you these pictures and video of the protesters in Virginia. I mean, it was almost word for word verbatim. I mean, it may sound slightly different. They may word it slightly, but it's almost exactly the same thing being said over and over and over again. And it's the same thing even say about Donald Trump. It's almost that it's like these news media outlets get together and somebody writes one story for all of them to read on air. And they may throw a couple of words in here, take a few words out there. But if you really listen, it's all almost the exact same wordage. And they know for a fact that if they just keep browbeating you with this, not everybody, but a good portion of the people watching will actually start thinking the way they want. Well, actually believing the stories too. Let's be honest. They'll actually start believing it because they're not thinking with their brain. They're thinking more with their emotions. And that's how they get you. They just keep up at it because they know these people are not going to take the time out of the day to follow up and say, well, I wonder if this story's really true. Let me get on the internet or something and try to find my own sources, see what maybe the federal government website has to say about this, or my local government has to say about this. No, they know people aren't going to do this. They know that these people are just going to watch one or two different news channels, like say MSNBC or CNN, and that's it. Or they're just going to be reading what they see on the internet through Facebook, Twitter, and they know that these people are going to just read that and not take the time to go ahead and look up this information themselves. Because lately we have been becoming a nation of instant gratification. If we can't find something, say within 5 to 10 minutes, it's not worth these people, especially the young people, worth doing or checking out. They're just going to take everything at face value. They don't want to be, it'll take too long to figure out. I'll just watch this. That's it. That's the attitude a lot of these young people have been getting into. They don't want to take the time out to do their own research. They would rather just rely on like CNN or David Hogg or AOC for their information. And once again, like I said, due to the fact that these people use certain words and terms to manipulate their feelings, when you actually present these people, no, look, this is actually the truth here. This is, but they won't believe you because you are a differing opinion. And if you look also at people like David Hogg, AOC, they will actually attack people for having a different opinion, saying, oh, well, this person will tell you that I'm wrong. What's wrong with having this? My idea is it's new, it's not radical. Actually, no, your ideas are not new. And yes, they are pretty damn radical, but these young people don't want to take the time out, like I said, to do the research, to find out what the truth is. They don't want to hear from the other side. It's like, oh, hey, David Hogg told me that you're going to call him a liar, so I'm not going to listen to you. And boom, that's when the insulting comes. That's when they refuse to talk to you. And that's when they start getting angry and yelling and screaming and calling names. And if you're there in person, who knows, they might even grow violent towards you. And that's what these people are doing. They are instilling that type of action into these people because that's how they control them. They want them perpetually angry, scared, and confused. That's their main goal. Because when you're angry, scared, and confused, you start looking for somebody who's going to make sense. And then that's where people like David Hogg and AOC come in. They start making it sound like, hey, look, we got to be peaceful and love and all this other stuff. Peace has to reign in. We got to love one another. But hey, if you own a gun, you're the enemy. You're a bad person. You don't want our kids to be safe. And then to further control with emotions, they go, if you own guns, that means you don't care about the kids that were killed or that will be killed with gun violence. You're a Nazi for wanting that. That means that you want these kids to be killed. And that's how they start using the death of these innocent kids for their own agenda, because they know, hey, these kids were killed by a firearm, so let's use it. And that's what I mean by they want to keep you scared and angry and sad, because they're using the deaths of people to get what they want. And what do they want when it comes to gun control? They want to take away all the damn guns in the country. They'll say, oh no, we don't want all the guns. We just want, like say the AR-15. We want assault rifle, but an assault rifle taken away. But they cannot give you a clear definition of what an assault rifle is. Well, actually they can, but they don't want to. They want to leave it vague. They want to leave it very broad. So that way, once, say, they do happen to get AR-15s out of the way, then they can go after another semi-automatic rifle and say, well, that's an assault weapon too. But getting into gun control, that's a whole nother conversation to have. But I'm just trying to say, or give you an example on how they're using people's, especially the kids, the youth, the teenagers' emotions, how they're using that to control them. They know that it's frightening. Hey, these gun nuts want to come to your school and shoot you up, so we got to take guns away. Guns are bad. Anybody who wants to own a gun is bad. They're here. They would just want to come to the school and shoot you on the street. That's basically, in a nutshell, of what they're saying. They're trying to get the youth scared. Why? Because then when these kids are scared, they're going to be reactionary. So when they're old enough to go out and vote, they're not thinking with their brain, they're thinking with their emotion and going, guns bad, I got to get rid of it. I don't want to die in school or have my friends die in school, so let's check this box that says we want gun control and get rid of the Second Amendment. That's their whole plan. Like I said, they want everybody mad, they want everybody scared and confused so they can control them. How to combat it? And that's a hard thing to do. Besides just pushing the truth on them and calling it out every time you see it wrong. Like the whole Virginia thing. I spent almost a day and a half disproving David Hogg when he said there was nothing but white supremacists in Virginia. And I kept showing him videos and pictures of African American gun rights people there saying, no, there's no one here is racist. It's been quite peaceful. We've been happy and talking with each other. But yet, if you listen to only David Hogg, there were probably fights and riots going on, and everybody was being threatened, and none of that happened. Seriously, go on his Twitter and look it up for yourself, and you'll see that he was trying his best to instill so much fear and anger into everybody. He was purposely lying to his followers about what was truly happening in Virginia. It's getting to the point where even the media and the politicians aren't even hiding their lies anymore because they know people will not call them out on it. They got people so riled up and confused and scared and angry that they don't need to have proof anymore. They can literally virtually lie right to these people's faces because they're so confused, and these people will not see the truth. Okay, I rambled enough. I hope this made a lot of sense to you. If you like this, I don't really want to call it a video. It's more of me just ranting on a podcast, I guess, if you will. Give it a thumbs up anyway. Leave some comments down below. If I left anything out, if I didn't hit on a subject, or if I didn't clarify something good enough for you, leave it all down in the comments below. Maybe I'll make another one to clarify it for you. Well, until the next one, I don't know if I want to call this a video. You take care of yourself. And remember, think with your mind and your rational thought process, not with your emotions. Have a fantastic day.